Happy Monday. Chris Lee here, joined by Blake Lovell and Max Barr of Southeastern 16. You know what Monday means. It is power rankings. Boy, we had some stuff to think about and debate over the weekend. I'm ready for this, guys. I got my high top Nike Dunks that I got for Christmas on and laced up. I'm ready to go. Max, I mean, it goes without saying, Max is charged up, and Blake, when he gets unfrozen, I'm sure we'll be excited about this too.
Hey, hold on a second, okay? Listen, by the way, if you're in the chat, let us know if you can hear Chris okay, because it sounds a little low on our side, but you guys let us know in the chat. Make sure we can all hear Chris, because we're going to have quite a debate coming up here, and I got to make sure you can hear him. But let's set the stage, as we always do. Before we jump in, we got to set the stage for what's to come. This is the most disagreement we've ever had on the top five. So if you are curious about the top five, we're going to have some thoughts on this. But beyond that, as always, if you're jumping in, like button, subscribe button, all that good stuff. If you want to know what we're all about here, well, it's right here. This is all you need to know. If I can find the comment, it's somewhere. Nicholas, Blake only cares about shooting. Chris is all analytics, and Max is all about bully ball. That's our setup here. I think I would change one thing there, Nicholas. I would say Blake only cares about scoring, not just shooting. Can you score the ball? And I'm going to explain why here in a minute. It's very clear. If you can't score the ball, you're not winning in the SEC. So we'll get into that shortly. But are we ready, Max? And so, Chris, speak for a second so we can get the people to weigh in on your microphone, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Well,
yeah, it's not on, Chris.
Figured it out. Okay. I did all the mic settings but one. How's that?
There you go.
Gosh.
I think that's better.
Yep.
All right.
I don't know what's
here
going
we go.
on. But anyway, here we go. We start at number 16. Max Barr, who was our number 16 team this week?
Number 16, we have LSU Tigers down at the bottom. They are coming off of back-to-back road week. They lost at Mizzou and then lost at Ole Miss in Oxford on Saturday. 0-3 to start here for LSU.
Yeah, again, there's going to be a main theme with these bottom three teams, and it's setting up very clearly. LSU offensive efficiency 104. All right, Max, let's go to the next team.
Next team, 15, South Carolina. Blake, would you mind telling me their offensive efficiency?
I would not mind, because I'm going to tell you that it's 111 in offensive efficiency. But look, the thing with South Carolina, they jumped LSU this week, right? Because it was swapped the last week.
Yep, it was swapped.
They jumped because they had a great performance against Auburn. And I had said this morning to someone, South Carolina's going to win a couple of these games this year, which was kind of our thought coming into SEC play. They're going to win a couple of these home games. And I just don't know who it's going to be, but they're going to get somebody. Even though the more I look at their home schedule, it is brutal. But they go to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma this week. So if they could find a way just to sneak out one of these games this week, pull off a road upset, would be significant for the South Carolina team. Because if they don't, here's their next upcoming schedule. Home against Florida, home against Mississippi State, at Georgia, home against A&M, at Kentucky, home against Ole Miss, at Florida. Oh, my.
Ooh.
So they got to win one of these this week. So.
Keep an eye on the health of Jamari Thomas, too, this week.
Yeah.
I think when we read off schedules anymore, it's just like Charlie Brown's teacher.
Because but hold on. When you say that, there's somebody who has a great upcoming schedule, and I never thought I could say that about anybody. We'll get to them.
Right.
But trust me, a lot of them feel the same, but there is a little bit of separation, especially when we're talking about teams that play these teams here that are currently ranked at the bottom, even though number 15 just almost beat number 1. So,
fair enough.
Again, let's just put that all in perspective, right?
Yep.
So.
All right, moving on up, number 14.
Oh, my.
The Razorbacks of Arkansas. 0-3 start. But, Blake, I'm not going to go any farther. Take the floor here.
111 for South Carolina, 104 for LSU, 75 for Arkansas. And I will tell you that because what do you mean what?
How's that even possible with their talent?
Oh, well, that's a great question.
Oh,
Well,
But every other
put that on a
SEC
tee,
team,
didn't I, Max?
Boy, you just got the chat fired up about that question. Every other team in the SEC except for one, and this is going to be, I can't wait till we get to this team because I'm going to tell you, they're pulling this off with this kind of offense right now, and their efficiency numbers, incredible. But every other SEC team is in the top 45 in the country in offensive efficiency. Most of them are in like the top 30. And so this is how far Arkansas is behind in terms of their offense right now. And I keep saying it. I pointed out on the show on Saturday night, the prime time, when they play against good teams, those good teams are seemingly daring them to beat them from outside, and it's not happening. And they've got to figure something out offensively. And this is such a big week. At LSU, at Missouri. 2 road games, but Max, let's go ahead and just, what do you think the line's going to be, Arkansas at LSU tomorrow night? What do you think?
LSU might be favored by a point. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't know.
Like
about
LSU,
that. Maybe
that's
Arkansas
what-
by a point, but
it's gonna be a point either way. Within a
Wow.
possession. Within a possession. Where it opens, the money will probably take it whatever direction it wants to take it, but that's going to be a 1-possession game. Say
Ken Palm
must
has
win.
got LSU by a point.
Must win game.
oh yeah,
My
no
goodness.
question. No question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on up.
Sorry.
Vandy. Oh God. Yeah,
We would, if
now.
we had more
Wow.
time, we would play that press conference, but we don't on
Oh,
power rankings.
goodness.
So, yeah.
Okay. Moving
Yep.
along now.
Vandy at number 13. Vandy dropped both games this past week. Lost at home to Mississippi State on Tuesday, and then went on the road to Mizzou on Saturday. And Missouri really played a good game. Vandy dropped that one. So now Vandy 1-2 in the league with that opening win last Saturday at LSU.
Okay, this is where we start to say some schedules are built a little differently. Vandy hosts South Carolina on Wednesday, and then from there, I mean, it just gets ugly. And, you know, Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Florida, Texas, Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky. Like, they're getting Tennessee and Kentucky, like, twice within a span of, like, a month. You know, it's all kind of sandwiched in there. And so that's where I think we see the end. They have Auburn at home and at Alabama in that stretch too, at Florida too. So like, this is where we talk about, like, there is some separation with schedules. So we talk about must wins. The most must win game of the season for Vanderbilt now is on Wednesday when they host South Carolina, because after that, they're going to have to play spoiler for the next, I mean, my goodness, for at least the next month. When you just look at probably what the, you know, spreads are going to be and those kind of matchups that they're going to have against these top upper echelon teams, a lot of them are going to be on Vanderbilt's schedule after that.
Out of their next 9 games, 5 of them are against Ken Palm's top 8. That is ridiculous. Every other game is against a top 8 team in the nation right now.
Yeah, I
Vanderbilt-
pointed out. Go ahead, Blake.
No, go ahead. It's fine. I'll just bring up something after you finish.
Well, I pointed out, depending on what happens with Texas, it is possible that after South Carolina, they have 12 straight games against teams that are heading to the NCAA tournament. I feel like they have run up against their worst fears. I thought Mark Byington did a tremendous job of rebuilding a roster. Their top 9 or 10 players in minutes are transfers from the wreckage that Jerry Stackhouse left him. But they scheduled easily, and you just don't know what a team has till they play the heavyweights. They're running up against the things that we feared would be their issues. They're not an elite three-point shooting team by any stretch. They lack size and height inside, and those things bit them in the last 2 games.
I just quickly, I think I would still, and I may have done this. This may be the reason why Vanderbilt got the. I think I ranked Arkansas ahead of Vanderbilt. Still, I still think I would favor them a little bit, but then I think about the offensive difference in the way they run offense, and boy, that would worry me a little bit. So,
Well, who's getting more out of his team? That's
Well-
not nothing.
well, true, but it's still a matter of game, like matchup on matchup. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey, look,
you know,
if you took Arkansas's roster and Vanderbilt's roster and just said, all right, you guys, Max, you coach one and Blake, you coach the other, or just pick any two coaches, I think Arkansas wins that in talent alone, but that's not how it's playing out.
all right.
Right now, on a neutral floor, Arkansas would be favored by a 0.5 point.
Yeah.
So now moving on up. Now these next two teams, 12 and 11, were separated by 1 vote. So this is the first, we get into the first real tight vote here. At number 12, we have a Texas team who is 0-3, lost the opening weekend at Texas A&M pretty badly, 80-60. But then the 2 home games this week, they didn't get a win, which would have been huge, but only a 5-point loss to Auburn and then a 4-point loss to Tennessee. 0-3, however, I kind of feel good about Texas moving forward after those 2 results.
It's kind of wild, isn't it? Like we're having to.
They
With
moved
these-
up, 2 spots
Well,
by losing 2
that's-
games?
yes, but like
They
that's
looked
where we're
good.
at. I mean, they look pretty good in the 2 games
Yeah.
against the top 2 teams as they were last week. So I think it's kind of tough, yeah, because look, we're still looking at that 0-5 possibility. Like what a game on Wednesday, which we're about to get to the other team, I would assume shortly, at Oklahoma and then at Florida. I mean, and even like I keep saying 0-5 potentially, and I'm not doing that to like put this on Texas, but you even go a step further, and the
was just
next
gonna
week
do that.
they host Missouri and Texas A&M, and so it's like I don't think Texas is a bad team, but this is what's happening in this league this year. And I said the problem with Texas is that we can think they're not a bad team and we can reward them for close losses, but they just do not have good wins. They have 11 wins, but there's not a lot there. If I'm looking at, let me pull it up real quick here because I think this is important for the discussion. In terms of, let's
You
see.
looking at the net?
Well, let me look at the actual. Yeah, so Texas is 0-5 in quad 1 games. They're 2-0 in quad 2, 2-0 in quad 3, 7-0 in quad 4. So they have 11 wins. 7 of those have come in quad 4, 0 in quad 1. And so I think that's the problem for Texas right now, is that we're rewarding them for close losses. But,
Yep.
I mean, at some point, you got to win games. And, yeah, that's a struggle. So
Yeah.
Those
I
close
was-
losses, though, look good in the net, and they're 39th right now. So
well,
that
that's
is
all that
what's
matters.
like.
I mean,
That's
come on.
that's all that matters, obviously.
That's all that matters.
I voted them lower because they have not beaten anyone of consequence yet. I mean, your best win is at NC State, and when it's close, that's
Yep.
where I go. I mean, I could see Texas even being 9 or 10 by the end of the season. I could, but you have to earn it.
Got to start winning at some point.
Yeah.
And they'll have an opportunity on the road at Oklahoma. Oklahoma 13-0 start, 13-3 now. No shame though in that schedule. At Alabama and at Georgia, drop both of those, and then lose by 2 at home to a Texas A&M team who kind of just perfectly matches up with an Oklahoma team that's a little bit soft in the front court. So 0-3 start here for Oklahoma. They were only 1 vote separated Oklahoma and Texas. So I feel like we all kind of agree here that Texas and Oklahoma are kind of in a, I don't know if you want to call it a zone of opportunity, but don't not like them, but also got to start winning some games here.
Well, don't look now, but Oklahoma could change their fortunes dramatically this next couple weeks because 2 home games this week, Texas and South Carolina, both very winnable. At Arkansas on Saturday, January 25th. Who knows where Arkansas is at 12 days from now. At Texas A&M, and then they get Vanderbilt at home. So, I think Oklahoma is the team, and that's why if we're looking for separation points, right? Maybe Texas you feel like has played a little bit better the last couple games, but the separation is that Oklahoma has beaten Michigan. They, I think, have a chance to get their record back to 500 pretty quickly, depending on how this week goes. And so, meanwhile, as we said, Texas may not just be 0-5. Like, worst case scenario, they're going to be 0-7. And so it's like that could be a little bit of the separator right now. And yes, we can say like Oklahoma's non-conference strength of schedule was not great. 332 is the number, but it's still better than 353, I think, for Texas. And they beat Michigan. They beat Louisville. Wins like that. And so those aren't nothing. Arizona's won 6 in a row now. So, yeah, Oklahoma, I think, is still they're 0-3. They got to win games, but this is where doing some work in the non-conference, that's still going to pull a little weight with me, even though, as we're going to get to the discussion, I don't think every game should be weighed equally as we get further in the season, but that still has to hold a little weight because they just beat Michigan a month ago. So
the concern I have is that Georgia shut down Jeremiah Fears. Nobody's done that all season. I don't know if they left the blueprint on tape. I think not. I've seen Fears enough to think that's just a one-off, but that was a little problematic in the way that they lost the Georgia game.
Big week upcoming for Oklahoma. Got to take care of business at home in this league. Moving into the top 10 now. Moving into the top 10. All of these teams, I think, are above an 85% chance at an at-large bid now. So we're talking firm tournament teams here now. And at number 10, we have a Missouri team who swept the week, 2 home games, had to take care of business against LSU on Tuesday and Vandy on Saturday. Did so both in pretty impressive fashion. Neither of those were really in doubt. Missouri doing what they do. They're still the number 2 team in the nation at getting to the free throw line, and they're 5th in the nation at forcing steals. So Missouri back to doing what Missouri does, sitting here at 10, guys.
A great formula that Dennis Gates has put into play here in Columbia, Missouri, and they're going to need to keep working that because they go to Florida on Tuesday, home against Arkansas on Saturday. So their schedule gets a bit tougher here moving forward too. Not that it hasn't been, but we said that's why those 2 home games this past week were so important for Missouri, LSU, and Vanderbilt. You needed to win those games to start to separate yourself a little bit. They found a way to win both because now, the grind began in game 1 at Auburn, but the grind really begins now, I think, for Missouri. And so can they keep working the formula? Forcing turnovers, shooting the ball as well as they have, getting to the free throw line. If they can keep doing that, they're going to keep winning games. And so I like what I've seen from this team. I think the depth, as we said, is just a clear difference between last year and this year. And don't look now. The Missouri Tigers are streaking in SEC play, but they're streaking in the right direction now. Back-to-back wins in conference play.
I haven't fact-checked this, but Missouri's only played 3 games away from home. I would bet you that's the lowest number in the league. They've lost all 3. Now, who have they lost to? They lost to Memphis in the season opener at Memphis. They lost to Illinois on a neutral floor. Anybody's game. The breaks didn't go their way. Illinois has been playing exceptionally well since Thanksgiving or so. And they lost to, or if not the whole season, they lost to Auburn in the jungle. That's what happens to pretty much everybody. So it's a weird sample because all 3 of those games, none of those were layups, but just something to watch because all the wins have come at home. For the record, I think they're really good, but boy, speaking of tough games away from home, the one coming up against Florida, I guess Missouri's just going to play killer teams in all of its road games. That's how it looks.
All right, before we move on,
we
gotta get back to the chat here for the people. So you guys keep sending in your chats. We promise we'll circle back around to them. You know how power rankings work. We like to get moving here because the top 5, as I said, could last 6 hours with the debate we're gonna have on these 5. But Zach, the streak continues for him, just like Missouri streaking back-to-back wins in SEC play. That is officially called a streak. But Zach also streaking in the super chat, $5 super chat. 87,000 straight streams in a row. Zach has given us money. Watching Arkansas run offense physically hurts. I didn't say that. Zach said that, and he paid $5 to do it. We appreciate Zach. $1.99 here from Too Late. You're never too late here because we're just glad to be here. Hotty toddy, the Ole Miss Rebels.
Hey.
We've yet to see them in our power rankings. Perhaps they're coming up soon, but there you go, folks. Jump on into the chat. We'll get back to your thoughts here in a bit.
May I add a footnote here? Mike, I'm
Yes.
very aware that Illinois just lost to Southern Cal. Mike, are you aware who Illinois didn't have in that game? Their top 5 NBA pick was unavailable.
Say his name. Say his name.
Japunas
Oh,
Kasparis. That guy.
Oh, I just
Takunas,
wanted
you
to-
heard it here first, guys.
Yakachonis. Isn't that right, Max?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yakachonis. He can
Max
play.
and
I've
I,
seen
you
him.
should have heard the prep we did for that video, multiple videos on our prediction
also
videos.
got
We were like Ron
Tom
Burgundy,
Rikus.
like rehearsing. Yeah, we were rehearsing
Rikus.
all the names
Rick
before.
House.
It was like, unique New York, unique New York. Like just we were doing all that with the names. It was tremendous. But all right,
All right.
who's next?
Moving on up, I believe this is a season high ranking for the Dogs.
Fans may
Georgia.
not be happy with that either. They may
Georgia.
want a little bit more.
Well, I wouldn't blame them. Georgia is on a 2-game win streak. Took care of home this week. Beat Kentucky by 13. Beat Oklahoma by 10. Bouncing back from that opening Saturday loss on the road to Ole Miss, who was still undefeated. But guys, Georgia, we were talking about them a lot on our primetime stream. Really, really liking what I'm seeing from this defense.
Who needs offense when you play defense like Georgia? Because they're 73 in offensive efficiency. They're the other outlier we mentioned. But they're getting it done with their defense. And they're also getting it done by shooting, 38 free throws against Kentucky, 37 against Oklahoma, which I know I had to bring up because everybody's bringing it up. Free throws have been a theme in SEC play early on, but that should not surprise anyone. That's just how it works. But we'll get to the free throw game here in just a few. But, so listen, they're still getting it done defensively, but they are getting to the line, and that will help you because it makes the game a lot easier. Because if you look at their points distribution now, they're only getting 26.3% of their points from three, which is 301st nationally, which is probably a good thing, right? Because we said shooting, it's about average, a little bit below average maybe. They're shooting 51%, or 51% of their points are coming from two, which is smart. And again, I think you just look at them getting the free throw line, but look at the way Sanua's playing. Look at the way this whole team's playing right now. But folks, it's time to officially announce it. The Georgia Bulldogs are entering the danger zone. Call Kenny Loggins because Georgia is entering the danger zone here at Tennessee, home against Auburn, at Arkansas, at Florida, and then a week later they're at Alabama. Here we go. This is the time for the Georgia Bulldogs. They're either about to shoot into the top 3 in our power rankings, or they may just stay right here, or they may drop a spot because they've done some good work to this point, back-to-back top 20 wins. But, man, their schedule is brutal over the next 2 weeks. 3 weeks.
What is up with this man and his 80s tunes references this week, Max Barr? We've got Kokomo. We've had Danger Zone.
I got another one coming up for Sanders Logistics later. Don't wait. I got another one coming. Don't worry. It's going to be 80s themed.
Over the next 3 weeks, full 3 weeks, Georgia only plays 2 home games, and one of them is against Auburn. That is a rough 3-week stretch. Only getting 2 at home. But we move on. This was another team that was separated. All right, we're getting into the nitty-gritty here, guys. Another team separated by 1 vote at 8. We have the Rebels of Ole Miss. They just keep chopping wood, as I like to quote D. Stone Dubar. 3 in a row now. Opening up Saturday with a win against Georgia by 12. Then they go on the road and beat Arkansas. And then they take care of business quite handily at home just a few days ago against LSU. 2 straight road games, though, coming up, guys. Bama and Mississippi State. Woo! Heck of a week here upcoming for the streaking Rebels.
Yeah. If you think that Ole Miss or Georgia is entering the danger zone, well, pick up your phone and don't call Sanders Logistics just yet. Call Kenny Loggins again because Ole Miss is also entering the danger zone. At Alabama, at Mississippi State, home against A&M, at Missouri, home against Texas, home against Auburn, home against Kentucky. My goodness, they're playing 14 straight home games here. 3 in a row there, end of January, early February. That's a nice place to be if you're Ole Miss. So, yeah, pretty wild here for Ole Miss. 3-0, one of the lone teams, as we know now, standing at unbeaten in SEC play. But now, this is a prove-it week for Ole Miss, just like it is for Georgia, just like it is for some other teams. And so, yeah, I mean, this is – we said, Max, was this going to be like it was last year? Great non-conference overall, get into SEC play, and things start to fall apart a bit. Not happening so far. But they got to withstand the grind of this next couple weeks. Let's say they go on the road and win a game or two here in the next few weeks. My goodness, the Ole Miss Rebels will keep moving on up in our rankings if they do that.
Just looking something up that kind of surprised me, because I was about to say, and I still kind of believe this, what are the odds that Ole Miss falls or rises any more than 2 spots from where we've got Ole Miss?
Well, I think if they win some of these games over the next few
well,
weeks, I think they're moving up quite a bit, maybe.
That top 5 is awfully tough to get into. I don't know that they're that good, and also don't know that they're bad enough to drop past 11. I mean, they're not bad, but you know what I mean. But this is kind of interesting. I'd not realized this. They opened the season 46 in KenPom. After 4 games, or after 3 games, heading into the Colorado State game, they'd fallen all the way to 61. Just about every game they have played since, that was November 16th, they have risen in the KenPom rankings. They have fallen 1 or 2 spots once or twice, but they're now 24. I did not realize that they'd kind of been on a climb for the last 2 months, the way that Ole Miss has.
One thing about Ole Miss that's just hard for me to – it's making me wait just a little bit. 3-0. But came against Georgia, Arkansas, and LSU. Those are all offenses outside the top 70. So while the defense has looked good, 3 wins in a row, I think you're gonna get the real test here at Alabama. This is by far the best offense they've played probably all year. So major test on Tuesday here for the Rebels. And I believe Bart Torvik has them as a 6th seed. So do with that what you will. Moving on up. Top 7 now. Top 7.
All right. We're getting close here.
Yep. Top 7. We have the Aggies of Texas A&M, who had a tough week without their guy, without their preseason All-American Wade Taylor. But they did catch a road win at Oklahoma without him, and then put up a good fight on the final score, only losing by 6 to Alabama. But we all know how the free throws and that game was just nonetheless, they did hold their own without Wade against 2 pretty good teams this past week.
Yeah, I mean, A&M still has a great group of wins on the season, and that's great and all, but, you know, you still have to – I mean, they lost the home game, right? And that's what we said. Like, it's just, you lose a home game, just like another team we're about to talk about lost a home game. Like, it's just, yeah, I mean, it's kind of that league. And I think that's what we're talking about. We're just starting to see some separation. Look at teams who are going on the road and winning games, right? And A&M got one of those last week at Oklahoma. And, you know, that was a game where if you're Oklahoma, you're really looking back at that one because they feel like they should have won that one. But, yeah, I mean, A&M still really good. They've got a great body of work this season. They go to Kentucky on Tuesday, and we just, without knowing the status of Wade Taylor, it just makes it a lot harder to kind of figure out maybe what to do with this team. But yet here they are still in this spot, and if you're number 7 in our power rankings, you're still a top 20 team nationally. So, yeah.
Did you guys? Well, actually, a reporter asked Buzz Williams in his last press conference. A reporter asked Buzz Williams, said, do we have a timetable for a return time here for Wade Taylor? Do you guys think Buzz gave him a timetable?
No, I'd be shocked.
He just straight up said, nope, I'm not giving you one.
Yeah.
So just keep an eye on those injury reports.
The headliner here has been, and we've talked about it, but if people haven't caught it, the way Phelps has played the last couple of games, he's kind of taken over, although it was he was 9 for 29. But they needed a guy to take on that volume score role. Now, I think the matchup coming up, I think going to Kentucky is about the last game you want to play right now because of the way the styles mesh in this game. But that is life in the SEC.
Yep. All right. Moving on up. Top 6 now. Top 6.
Oh boy. We're one away. Everybody just go get your drinks ready. Like, just everybody settle in now. If you need to go take a bathroom break, go ahead, because this final 5, we're probably going a half hour on debating these top 5. So we're getting close. We're just giving you the warning here. The 2-minute warning.
This was a unanimous 6. I'm pretty sure.
I thought Chris ranked. Maybe not.
I think this was unanimous 6. Could be wrong, but we have Hail State coming in at number 6. This past week, they went to Vandy, won by 12, 76-64, and then probably game of the week, the 95-90 Kentucky win at the Hump was an incredible game. The Ansley Almanor game. I didn't come away from that thinking less of Mississippi State whatsoever, and they're here at 6, guys.
Sorry, I'm laughing at some of the comments. They're already getting a little rowdy. We haven't even got to number 5 yet. But, Austin, I believe that would be a crime if you did that, by the way. Just quickly, Austin says if Kentucky's at 5, he's going to break into both Max and I's homes and shave our mustaches. So, again, I don't think that's legal.
Seems a little
but
much.
Let's talk about Mississippi State here for a second. Yeah, I think the Bulldogs, I said it on Saturday, my opinion on them really didn't change much after that game. I thought they played a really good game. They just happened to get beat by a team that played better. But, again, we talk about like separation, right? This is the separation point for Mississippi State because they lose a home game. Now what, right? You need to go pick up one on the road. Well, they got 3 interesting games on the road here over the next 2 weeks. At Auburn, at Tennessee, at South Carolina. They got a home game rivalry against Ole Miss on Saturday. So, and then after that, they come home for Alabama. So, like, this is kind of that separation, too. Don't let one loss turn into multiple losses. That's the theme we keep saying. And for Mississippi State, that could happen because of their schedule over the next few weeks. So, can they bounce back? Can they go steal one on the road against Auburn? All kinds of stuff. Going to be fascinating.
Just to put it into perspective real quick. Last year, I don't know what it was at this time, but last year, talking about the final KenPom rankings, Mississippi State right now is 20th. That would be 4th in last year's SEC, just to put it into perspective, and it would almost be 3rd. So what are they, real quick, I just want to see, 4 seed projection. There's a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament right now.
For whatever reason, Kentucky just has a stranglehold over them with that's 19 in a row. I thought they caught Kentucky on a Kentucky A+ night, and boy, the performance varies for those guys. Florida found out too. This happens to a lot of teams when Kentucky is rolling. Good luck to you, no matter where you play the game. If I have a concern about them, and I don't think it's really a concern, it's more of a note. They got to get Josh Hubbard going again, Max. He's been kind of, I don't know, that might be the 2 most irrelevant offensive games he's had since he's been at State back to back. But I think that will resolve. He's too good a player.
It's also, you played the first, 8 games, 8-ish, 7 maybe? I think 7 games of the season with Clary playing, about over 20 minutes a game. It was Hubbard and Clary back there. So you play the first month or so with those 2, and then you got to adjust when the competition starts picking up. So that might play a factor. I still don't know a Clary timetable.
He would help them right now. They're missing him a little bit.
They just need that extra ball handler.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Getting in the top 5 now, guys.
All right. I actually got a couple things I got to do, so I'll be back. You guys go
thanks.
ahead. And No. I'm sticking around for this one because I have strong opinions, just like both of you do, on this list. And we, for the first time this season, I think, are in complete disagreement on a couple of these. So this is going to be fun because I completely disagree with some of you on the spot of some of these teams. But this is a composite ranking. Keep this in mind. All individual rankings. We all rank them out. However the numbers come out, that's how it works. So here we go.
Also, we'll preface by saying there were a few ties that were broken by a high vote. So,
we're going to get to that. Don't worry. And that nonsense. We'll get to that in just a minute.
Yep, but number 5, we have got the Cats. The Cats.
You bunch of...
The Cats.
All right.
This was not my doing. This was not my
right.
doing. I will start with that. Kentucky comes off a week where they lose by 13 at Georgia and then turn around and bounce back in a fantastic way, 95-90 win at the Hump. Number 5 here.
Go ahead, Chris. You go first, all right? Then you go first, and then I'll weigh in with my thoughts on what I think about this development, okay?
Okay, if we are ranking teams on NCAA tournament resumes, is Kentucky higher than 5? Yes, I think so.
Yes.
If we are ranking
Easily.
teams on their best of their best moments, is Kentucky higher than 5? Yeah, Kentucky's probably number 2. Is that what we're doing here? Or are we taking the totality of the work and taking that all into context? Because I think that's what we're doing here. And 2 weeks ago, there was the Ohio State game. I mean, in 2 of their last 5 games, they have taken double-digit losses. That is part of the equation. I know people aren't happy about it, but you've got to give everybody credit for what they do and what they don't do. And if not, you're not being fair.
Max, your thoughts?
This is probably the hardest team to rank because just in the last 3 weeks, you have a 20-point abysmal loss against Ohio State. You have a 13-point loss at Georgia. But then you also have probably the best offensive performance we've seen this year with the 106 against Florida. And then you go into Mississippi State. It was on fire. Place was packed. And you go in there and you grab a win. Jackson Robinson and Ansley Almanor light the place on fire. So it's such a hard team to rank because on one side you can say, well, listen, 2.5 weeks ago they got handled by Ohio State, but also they've got some amazing wins. It's just which one do you lean into, I guess.
Okay, I'm going to ask you guys a question. If you're ranking the top 5 wins the SEC has had this year, I would submit for consideration that this would have to be in there. Kentucky beating Duke on a neutral floor. We would all agree that belongs there, right? I think we would agree that the win over Florida 2 Saturdays ago would be in there. I think you would submit the Mississippi State win for consideration. So you could say, I don't know that we'd settle there because Tennessee won in Illinois. Auburn's had a bunch of good wins. I don't know what our top 5 would be if we made it, but those would be all on the board for consideration. Would they not be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're taking top 5 worst performances, I think you would put that Ohio State game in there for sure. I watched him play Colgate. That probably isn't a bottom 5 performance, but they weren't great that day. It is just a weird team because you've got to take the really good and the really bad and figure out what to do with it. And depending on which one you weigh the most, you're going to get different answers.
All right. So the Colgate thing, I can't support because there is another team we're going to compare them to that also had some pretty ugly performances. And I just can't completely go off that because that was a while ago and I'm just not. The chat has certainly picked up a bit. And just for the record, I know, again, this is a composite ranking. Some of us take certain sides. Skylar, I lost some super chats of that. Believe it or not, I know we pander for money sometimes, but this is one of those where actually we have to try to put the rankings together and all that. But the thing is, like power rankings too, it's your criteria, right? What are you valuing the most? And I think for me, when I do look at the wins that Kentucky has, you said it. I mean, that's where I would start. Like they have a better group of wins than anybody, not just in the SEC, but like nationally. When you look at their top wins, it is absurd, really, when you think about how many good wins they have. And like we said, it was kind of a prove-it week for Kentucky, right? Well, they went and lost at Georgia. Then they turned around and canceled that out a bit, though, by winning at Mississippi State, a team that we were as high on as anybody probably going into last week. Kentucky goes in there and wins, again, for the 19th straight time against the Bulldogs. And so, from that standpoint, I just look at this and still, and that's where, like, again, I know we're going to have some pushback here, Chris, you and I on this thing when we talk about the next team that's on our list. But it's hard because right now, like, if I'm looking at this with Kentucky coming off of that win against Mississippi State, I probably am saying, you know what? I know what happened to Georgia. And again, there were maybe some things that contributed to that loss at Georgia. But when I look at the ceiling, and I put this poll question out on Twitter yesterday, you guys can chime in, and trust me, I know there's going to be some bias in the comments, and that's okay. But of these teams, which teams of these three, we're going to pick three teams here, okay? Which of these three teams has the highest ceiling, you think, the rest of the way? Between Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida. And I can't tell you, it was sort of like the vote was so interesting to me because, of course, I had to delete it because people were like, well, why didn't you put Auburn and Alabama in there? I'm like, well, that's not the discussion here, folks. We're just focusing in on these three teams, okay? And so if you look at it from that standpoint, just take those group of teams right there and figure out who do you think has the highest ceiling. I mean, when I look at the way Kentucky plays offense, like, you guys know I value offense. I love it. And so it's one of those where the defense, if it just gets a little better, right? I mean, look, their first three games, 106 to 100, 95 to 90. Great. But they won both those games. Okay? And yes, I know they lost the game at Georgia. Yes, you have to factor in the fact that they lost by 20 against Ohio State. I get all that. But their strength of schedule is still better, right? Max, am I wrong on that? Then it's better than Tennessee, correct?
Kentucky's right now is 23 and Tennessee's is 72.
Wow.
Okay.
23?
Yes.
How have 22 teams played tougher? And also, they also played Gonzaga. I don't know I don't know how there's 22 teams that have played tougher schedules than them. I don't know what went into that calculation, but that doesn't seem right. Anyway,
so Kentucky they're 4-3 in quad one, right? They're 4-3. So they played 7. And I think when I look at it from that standpoint, the only other team that's played more would be Auburn, who's played 8. So it's like, that's where I struggle a little bit. Yes, they've lost games, but at the same time, I look at this and I'm like, do I penalize them for losing a couple quad 1 games if another team didn't play those quad 1 games and just beat up on teams they should have beat up on? It's difficult. And so I don't know. I think this is, as we said, this was going to be a tough debate in this range, but man, it's just the ceiling of Kentucky it's like the allure of the Mark Pope offense and the way they look when they're going that way. It's just, oh man.
See, I think this is your problem. Any other year, Kentucky would probably be 1, 2, 3 without a lot of debate. There are 6 teams in the league that have more wins than Kentucky has, and I know it's not the win number is not the end all be all. But point is, there's a lot of teams having a lot of success. There are only 4 teams that have lost more games than Kentucky, and that's my point. You have to consider everybody else and what they've done or not done, and I get why Kentucky fans are mad about it, but you've got to weigh everybody and what they've done. And it's incredible. I don't know. I mean, none of us had an easy time sorting through these.
Yeah, and we'll be able to compare back. Let's keep moving a little bit. We've got number 4, who is not. This was extremely tight. Number 4 is Tennessee. Tennessee is coming off of the Tuesday. I don't even know a word to describe that. 30-point loss to Florida, and then another game on the road, back-to-back games on the road. They go to Texas and squeeze out a 74-70 victory. Tennessee 15-1, wins over Illinois, Baylor, Arkansas, Texas, but that Florida game is sticking out like a sore thumb, guys.
Max, you know what the Florida game is? Have you ever been driving down the road and it's sunset time and you're driving right into the sun? And you got your sunglasses on,
Yep.
you try to move your visor, you try to watch the road, and like there's that 5-minute stretch where it doesn't matter what you're doing.
Yep.
The sun is just blinding you. And you almost have to pull over and just wait for it to change positions in the sky. That's what that game was. It just
comment.
obscured everything.
I don't know why. I'm just like, nobody's comment. Tennessee's always under Kentucky, even on the map. Even on the map. I just comment. I love it. Nobody, a regular here. I appreciate that. But, yeah. Anyways, the thumbs up. Uh-oh. I don't know why it does this. I don't know why. But I just think like the Tennessee 30-point loss on the road, and it is against a team that we've not yet mentioned, and we're going to see where they're at, right? But man, to score 43 points on the road, to have that offensive come back up again, I'm not gonna lie, like that worries me a bit with this team because
But
I
Blake,
mean, they're 15
they
and
do
1.
it every year. They do it every year, and they still win 25 games plus, and they still get a top 4 seed. And you know what? They'll probably do it again, and there'll probably be another freak out. And then you know what they'll probably do? They'll probably go and win a half dozen games in a row, beat a couple of top 25 teams, and be right back to what they always are.
Well, maybe, but I don't know that for sure. I mean, so it's just, I get it, but that was such a bad performance that you can say, well, that's just like, it is just one loss, and you're right? And I think that's the thing, but it's like, it's one loss, but it feels like, okay, that carries a lot more weight than maybe just one loss, I think, just to have that kind of performance. And so we'll see. Again, we'll see. But the thing is, I think Tennessee, the way their schedule sets up, I think they have, 5 of their next 7 are at home. And guess what I'm feeling pretty confident about? They're not going to lose many home games this year, if they lose any. And so, so yes, like they're going to be fine just because I think the nature of the way their schedule shakes out here. But it was nice for them to bounce back and win at Texas. That was a tricky spot. We talked about that. But man, that game at Florida, it makes you go a bit deeper into that Rick Barnes psyche a bit in terms of, hey, are we going to see this again? But yeah, here we are.
Blake, they're 4 in the net, and they're 4 in our league power rankings. I'm just saying that is the landscape that we are judging.
Yeah,
and that not just addressed to Tennessee.
For some reason, now that just we're talking through this, for some reason, Tennessee losing by 30 at Ken Palm's number 5 team in the nation feels like it's triple as bad as Kentucky losing by 20 at Ken Palm's 32nd team on a neutral. For some reason, Tennessee's feels like
I'll tell you why.
So
Max.
much heavier.
Because they were ranked number 1 in the country, and the bar of expectations was up there. That's why. And we live in an instant take society. And you almost feel pressure, like we look like the outliers at this channel when everybody is panicking and jumping off the cliff, and they're not following it the way we are day in and day out. And I've watched enough basketball. I've seen teams take losses like this. They are 1 in 1,000 events. They happen. You factor them in. They're part of your judgment. If another 1 or 2 happen, then okay, that may be a valid part, and that is part of who they are, right? That is part of their record, but it's also the only game they've lost. And if you're just letting that blind your judgment, one awful game against a Florida team that we've all said could win a national title in a building where not a lot of people win when they've got it rolling, that stuff can happen. Now, if they played that game 100 more times, I don't think it would look like that, but it did. It's part of the record. So are the other 15 games they played.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Kentucky would be a 2.5-point underdog on a neutral floor against Tennessee, but Kentucky's been a short underdog a few times on a neutral floor this year, and they've won most of those. So
it's like, hey, that's the thing too, right? It's like, who do you trust more in big games right now? And if those two played to be a big game, I trust Kentucky more in big games. And so, look, whoever said it may have been Skyler.
Why are we apologizing? These are opinions. It's a free country.
I'm not apologizing. I'm just telling you, like, what I was about to lead into was, it doesn't matter. Like, these are just power rankings. Like, our rankings mean nothing. Like, just as the AP poll doesn't really mean anything. Like, we're talking basketball. Who else out there has done 57 live streams in the past 5 days? Like, we're talking SEC basketball. It's what we do every week. We're glad you guys are joining us. You're not going to always agree with us, and that's fine. But hey, again, who else is breaking down SEC basketball like this? Find it for us. Come on. Let's go. Let's keep going. Yes, as Nathan says, yes, our rankings are everything. Everything. These teams, they're not even going to play the games now. They're like, you know what, it's over. So, no, we're having fun here. We always have fun here. This is great. People get excited this time of year. You get pissed off. That's wonderful.
We're about to get into some good stuff.
If you thought I was taking a stand for Kentucky, just wait, because this one's going to top that one. So I don't agree with this next one. But hey, it's a composite ranking, everyone. So
I agree with this next one.
I don't at all.
At number 3.
I don't even
at number
remember
3,
what we did.
Probably our biggest disagreement of the year yet. The Tigers are at number 3. I will put my hand up. This is because of me and me only. This is literally the reason they are at number 3 is because of me. I put another team above them.
Max, sometimes you just need to keep your mouth shut.
You should not have admitted this, Max.
Oh, I feel confident about this. I'll stand by this take. I will stand by this strongly.
By the way, Tony jumping in. Absolutely, Tony. We can absolutely play that game. All right? They mean nothing. Nothing. All right.
Let's group them both in. Let's group them both in. Should we? For the sake of the conversation?
Yes, we should. Because
number 2,
I can't.
The Gators of Florida.
I can't.
And number 3, Alabama is what we're working with right now.
Go ahead, Max. Like make your case for the Gators.
It's not by much. It's not by much at all. But Florida is one of the only teams where you can say they don't have a single bad performance in at all. They don't have one performance that was like, maybe they could have played better. Not one. Okay. Their only loss is a 6-point loss at Rupp when Kentucky broke records offensively, efficiency-wise. Okay. And they turn around and beat the number 1 team in the nation by 30. Absolutely destroy them. Okay. And then in the biggest letdown spot we've seen yet, they go to Arkansas and just handle them for pretty much 35 straight minutes. I mean, you beat North Carolina by 6. You get tested. Maybe they don't have the strength of schedule, but you watch this team. I mean, if we're comparing front courts, I'll take this front court against anyone. They just mauled 2 straight physical front courts in a row. They just physically manhandled Tennessee. And then you look at the backcourt, Walter Clayton, Mark Sears, 2 of the best in the nation. No doubt about it. Who do you trust more after that? Do you trust Aiden Holloway, Youngblood, or do you trust Elijah Martin, Will Richard? Give me Florida. Give me Florida all day. I'll stand by this take.
All right. I'll stand by the take that I think Alabama should be ahead of Florida for now. And it's not because, I'm not just going to talk about net rankings and all this stuff, but when I look at Alabama's body of work, which, by the way, includes what is now if I could count, which we know that's not a strong suit, they've won, 8 in a row? Alabama has. So they've won 8 games in a row here. And they're 14-2 on the season. But the bigger story is that if they're 14-2, and my math is correct, that means they played 16 games, right? They are 9-2 in quad 1 and quad 2 games. They're 4-2 in quad 1, 5-0 in quad 2. They've only played 5 games outside of the first 2 quads. And they've won 9 of those 11, or they've won 9 of the 11 games outside of quad 3 and quad 4, right? Florida, while impressive, and I'm with you, I think Florida is a national title contender, but these are power rankings, and we're trying to give you good content here. Florida quad 1 and quad 2, they are 6-1. Alabama 9-2, Florida 6-1. 9 of Florida's 15 wins have come in quad 3 and quad 4. And that's one of the things we were pushing back on a little bit with people who thought maybe Florida, and that's what happened, right? I said this on Twitter the other day, and I think people, nobody was saying Florida was overrated. Well, absolutely people were saying Florida was overrated after they went and lost to Kentucky. We heard it on the live stream, Max, Florida was never that good. We're like, I don't disagree with that. Once again, I think it was a case of Kentucky playing some really good basketball and beating Florida in a game where you had two high-level teams going at it. But just for this discussion, I do think when I look at Alabama, they have turned it on. They're playing, as Chris has said, almost to that level, maybe not even there yet, of what their ceiling can be. But I still think Alabama belongs ahead of Florida. I think they've proven more to this point. But I cannot also deny, even the argument I'm going to have here with you, that Florida, to have a 30-point win at home against the number one ranked team in the country in the AP poll, to only lose, look, I know they lost at Kentucky, but as we said, my opinion on Florida didn't change all that much, and they go win at Arkansas. I'm still very high on Florida, but I still think I would rank Alabama ahead of them right now based on the overall picture, and if it's that close, I am going to factor in, that concept that I just think Bama has proven more to this point, but I also am not going to act like I think there's just this huge gap between the two, because I don't. I think they're both top 5 level teams right now. So,
look, Alabama has not been whole most of the season. It is getting used to having its guys back. It is getting used to having Chris Youngblood as a part of what it does. Last time Alabama lost, 2-point loss to Oregon, November 30th. Since then, not just 8 wins, Blake, but 8 wins over teams that might make the NCAA tournament, which gives them now, 6 of those? They've beaten Houston on a neutral floor. Same thing with Illinois. Although I think that was in Birmingham, so not exactly neutral. Won at North Carolina, beat Creighton, beat Oklahoma, beat an A&M team that was as hot as anybody in the country. Come on. When it's close, you go with the resume. And Florida's got a nice resume, but it's not Alabama's.
Yeah, it's definitely close. We're splitting hairs between 2 of the top 5 teams in the nation right now. But another thing is we've been saying, for a while, Alabama's not playing at their ceiling. Alabama's not playing at their ceiling. They're not shooting it well. Florida, through 3 SEC games, is shooting 31% from 3. They're not even shooting it that well. Chinyelu has 9 fouls in the past 2 games. He's been slated on the bench for a while. So you can make an argument that as impressive as Florida's first 3 games have been, they're not even at their ceiling either. So, it's close. I'm not going to lie, it's close. But when you look at the 3 SEC games that have been played so far, I'll admit, obviously Alabama played the tougher non-conference, and you'll have those numbers. But just go back and rewatch that Tennessee game or even the Kentucky game. They don't look bad at all. And when you look at that Tennessee game, Condon's playing like an NBA first rounder right now.
Yeah.
He's with Broom down for the next how many weeks, Condon might be the best big in this conference right now with the numbers that he's putting up. And we don't put him in that category. He's playing like a first teamer. So, I trust him. I think they've got the front court to match anybody. And I think they've got the best backcourt in the league right now. So,
well, Max, in your defense, we've been saying, the computer numbers love Florida. We love Florida. We watch them. What's going to happen when they play somebody? Because you could say going into the weekend that there was not a team that Florida had played that would make the NCAA tournament. Now, I think North Carolina is probably moving up into that territory where it's going to get in. Arizona State, I don't know what the record is after this weekend. They were high in the net a couple of weeks ago, not as good in the predictive. So I think you could probably say North Carolina was the only team that was going to the NCAA tournament coming at, and then what do? And the litmus test that we had said, all right, we want to see how they handle it. They had maybe the best performance in college basketball all season. So, I mean, if you're going to frame it that way, and I don't agree with you, I would put Alabama second, but I can see how you could arrive there after you laid it out that way.
Great debate as always, and that leaves.
Hold on. I get the mic here. I kind of want to do what Mike's doing. I'd like to leave too to watch Sanford and Son. So I'm not gonna lie to you. Many other people have already left too, perhaps due to the ranking of their team. But 1,000+ of you have not, because you're either here to tell us how big of idiots we are, or you're waiting to see who number one is, which you know who it is by now, or you're also waiting for Sanders Logistics. That's still to come as well. But all right, number one. And I think this is also going to be something that people are going to debate here. But here's the deal. This was my thinking. You guys can go into your thinking. We can all say that Auburn is not going to be the best team in the SEC without Janai Broome. But so far, we've seen them for a half without Janai Broome. And they still won the game at South Carolina. And yet, when I still look at the overall body of work, that has to factor in too. I can't completely just say, you know what, I'm moving Auburn down to 7 without having seen them play a game against quality competition yet without him, right? So maybe next week there is separation, and maybe we start to say, all right, yeah, Auburn off to a historic start this season. But if they drop a game or two this week, because remember, they're home against Mississippi State, at Georgia. Then a week later, they host Tennessee. They drop some of those games, yes. Even with all the stuff that Auburn did before in the power rankings, they're going to move down. I guarantee you that will happen. But right now, they haven't lost yet without him, right? And so I can't penalize them for what I think's going to happen. I can only penalize them for what I've seen. And even a bad half against South Carolina, if you want to call it that, is that enough to drop them out of the number one spot based on everything they've done before that? In my opinion, no.
How are you? Just real quick before we get into it, I just think our chat is the absolute best. I'm giving a shout out to our chat right now. It's tough for me to read the chat when we're doing the power rankings because I got to do the things, but we've just been getting torn to shreds. But then every kind of fan base comes together and is like, I really want Broome to be healthy so that they're at their best also.
Sure.
I think that's great. I don't know how long he's out, and that's why I'm not going to try to predict it and drop Auburn way back. Because what if they come out this week and they beat Mississippi State at home, and then they go to Georgia and win without him, and we sat here on Monday and dropped them back because we thought they would regress a ton. I think that would be wrong of us. So I think it's right to keep them here at 1.
It'll take care of itself. You rank them in the moment based on what they've done. I mean, we could have done what the committee did to Florida State in football last year, which I understood, but we're doing two different things here.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to add on Auburn. Like, I mean, we've talked about Auburn. Everybody knows the scenario. Like, it is just, let's see what happens this week in these two games, because these are two pivotal games without him on the floor. So, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, we'll find out. But I think, too, like we said, I think this is the biggest week yet in terms of when you look around at all the different matchups that you have this week. I put this out on Twitter, what was it, yesterday? Let me find the numbers here. I said, I looked it up, and it was, here are the SEC teams this week who are currently projected. Maybe you get a number move here or there. SEC teams this week who are currently projected for multiple quad 1 win opportunities, multiple on their schedules. It's not just a couple teams. It is Auburn, Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, Arkansas, South Carolina. That's 10 teams this week who have two quad 1 games coming up, at least right now as it stands. I think there was one team in there that could drop the number a little bit. I don't remember if it was Oklahoma or somebody else. Maybe LSU was around that range for Arkansas on the road. But, I mean, that's what we're looking at. So this is a week where I think take our rankings this week and look at what they're going to look like next week. I think it's going to be dramatically different. And it's just because I feel like this is where we're about to see that big separation. And that's the thing, too, is that it feels like there is huge separation between number 2 and number 5, number 3 and number 6. But when you really look at the numbers, there is very little separation, like hardly any between these teams. And so it's going to be fascinating. And I think that's the difference between this year and every other year, is that if we were ranking teams, some years it would feel like a distant 5 would feel like miles and miles away from number 2 or number 3.
Yep.
It's just not. So it is what it is. As Matt said, the real number 1 in the power rankings, we know who that is, and we're about to get to him. But it's just, I mean, a great comment. Kentucky can move to 6-0 against top 15 teams this week. How about that? Huh? 6-0.
Oh, is the AP out? Did we miss it?
No, it doesn't come out for another whatever. But I think as it stands, that would be
right. Yeah.
Blake, I've got a rule of thumb. I'm gonna try this on for size. It may not fit every team. It's not working anymore.
No.
I think you could take every team in the SEC from about 6 down, maybe even 5 down, and move them up about 4 spots in any other power ranking in any other SEC. Like Ole Miss was what, 9? They'd normally be what, a 4 or a 5?
They were 8.
8. Okay. Well, I mean, 4 in a typical year would be fitting. Vanderbilt was what, 12? Vanderbilt's probably an 8 or a 9 in a lot of years, maybe a 7. See what I mean? And I don't think people are used to this.
Well, also to put it into perspective, if looking at the March Madness projections, we had Mississippi State as 6th in our power rankings. They're projected a 4 seed. We had Kentucky 5. They're projected a 3. Tennessee is projected a 2. Alabama projected a 1. Florida projected a 2. Auburn projected a 1. I mean, we're talking about almost half the league here looking at a top 3 seed with paths to the Elite 8, to Final Four paths. 6 of these teams. You want to jump it back to 7 at A&M. A&M's projected a 5 seed. I mean, we're debating these power rankings. We're splitting between teams that could meet up in the Elite 8.
Here you go.
Look,
here are the numbers, okay? Just quickly. Let's just lay it out there, all right? If you want to know how many great wins has this conference compiled this year, okay? Let's just take Quad 1 and Quad 2. Those are your top 2 quads. Let's just take those, all right? Let's just humor me a little bit, because pretty much every SEC game you play this year is going to be Quad 1 or Quad 2, right? All right. Auburn, 9-1, Quad 1 and Quad 2. 7 of those have come in Quad 1. Incredible. Tennessee, 5-1 in Quad 1 and Quad 2. Florida, 6-1 in Quad 1 and Quad 2. Alabama, 9-2 in Quad 1 and Quad 2. That's where I keep I'll be hating on the Tide. Kentucky, 5-3 in Quad 1 and Quad 2. Texas A&M, 7-3 in Quad 1 and Quad 2. Mississippi State, 6-2 in Quad 1 and Quad 2. Ole Miss, 6-2 in Quad 1 and Quad 2.
What?
He wasn't on the screen. He definitely wasn't.
He didn't see it.
What happened?
You had a bunch of balloons. It was a birthday
balloons.
party.
We should all be excited. Yes, it's a celebration. you may hate us, but it's a celebration here. Okay? So, but you see my point? Like, come on. Like, come on, folks. Like, this is incredible what all these teams are doing. And so, yeah. Anyways.
What an episode.
Well, what an episode, and we're not done yet. How do we get this off the screen here, Max?
Yeah, I got you.
Sorry, I was trying to move it off the screen. But okay. On the way out here, hit that subscribe button.
Yet, by the way.
Hit the like button. If you think we got it wrong, hit the like button. Let's try that.
Nice.
And so it is what it is. But yeah, the balloons. I really hate that I missed that. But here's what I've decided. After these rankings, you know what? Based on the chat, I think after these rankings, I've decided I need to move away. I need to move away from Chris Lee and Max Barr. And there are 2 places that seem to be calling my name right now.
Aruba?
That's
Bahamas?
not one of them. They were calling
Nope.
my name on
Oh.
Saturday, but not today.
Already got back from that trip.
Either Lexington, Kentucky, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama, because I've got to defend those 2 places, and the only way I can do that is if I get on the move to one of them And that, of course, the only way I can get there is with Sanders Logistics. Your friends and mine, Sanders Logistics, whose ad read I should know off the top of my head right now, but don't have pulled up and probably need to do that. Formerly known as Ted R. Sanders Moving. And if Ted R. Sanders is watching this stream right now, he's probably thinking the same thing. He's saying, we got to get Blake out of here, away from these two. We've got to. And so, Sanders Logistics, a leader among moving companies in Nashville, Tennessee, and the surrounding area. I don't ever want to forget that they're your friends and mine. Their team of professional movers are focused on delivering efficient, hassle-free moving, the complete opposite of our power rankings every week. Efficient, hassle-free moving at an affordable price. These things have become such a hassle, and they're not efficient whatsoever. But Ted R. Sanders, he's all about efficiency. And, again, it's at an affordable price. What more can you ask for? Whether you're moving across town, across the country, to Lexington, to Tuscaloosa, anywhere on this planet, well, not technically that's not true, but you get the point. Sanders Logistics has you covered. Visit them at tedrsandersmoving.com. Your friends and mine. Oh, the 80s song. You forgot about that. Well, I forgot that I promised you an 80s song. Listen, if you... Here's the thing, right? If you don't agree with our power rankings, that's fine, but I'm going to give you a little bit of advice here, all right? Use Sanders Logistics, and while you're moving along to wherever you're going with Sanders Logistics, just remember, don't stop believing, okay?
Nice.
Don't stop believing, because when you stop believing, then technically you've stopped believing, and so don't stop. You know what I mean? So you gotta make it work that way. So don't stop believing. It's a journey out there, and your journey starts with Sanders Logistics.
We'll have Tuesday previews out shortly.
I'm just a small town girl living in a lonely world.
Oh, good.
But
Lord.
don't stop believing. All right? With Sanders Logistics.
The wheel in the sky will just keep on turning here at Southeastern 16.
Boo.
We will have previews, predictions. We got baseball we had an interview yesterday that we've not aired yet with a very, very high profile SEC baseball coach. It was fantastic. What else can we?
I love that this has become a thing. Like, somehow I've made 80 songs a thing here. And I'm
have
all
you ever
for
seen
it.
Journey in concert, either of you?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Just literally 3
Yes.
seconds ago. We had it right here live on air. Everybody, lame emoji. I get it. Just a small town boy. I think I said girl, but, that's the song. So, anyways. All right. Longest power rankings ever. The worst we've ever done. But hit that subscribe button and get more content just like this.
Gotta love it.
All right. Thank you for watching our power rankings and engaging. We battle our audience at some times, but mostly we have fun with you guys. Appreciate that you guys are all here. Whether you agree with us or not, thank you for tuning in. For Max Barr and Blake Lovell, you've been watching Southeastern 16's basketball content. God bless you. Be safe. We'll see you again soon.